Effectiveness monitoring is the second type of monitoring that is part of the CFLRP. And this monitoring is much broader range of topics and probably potentially more detail in terms of the knowledge background in order to design the studies. So what I'm attempting to do here in this draft of a business process is keep it at a very general level, and include those elements that would be common regardless of the resource issue at hand. But there are some similarities to the previous diagram, the previous swim lane diagram. The lanes are the same. Payette Forest Coalition on the bottom, Forest Service in the middle, and contractors on the top. And there is a report, only this time it's not an annual report, and the audience for this report is Congress. The first one, this is again part of the CFLRP, the first one is scheduled for fiscal year 14, and then the schedule varies, but it's roughly 3 years apart. And this type of monitoring extends to 15 years after the first year of project implementation. So over on the right-hand side for the Forest Service, I've included a symbol for the report to Congress. On the left side, I think CFLRP is still an important kickoff point, the acceptance of the Payette's project into the program. And what I'm suggesting is that the first step, or an initial step, is to review the CFLRP indicators. Some of these, particularly the ecological indicator, has been adopted as policy. There are others that are still in draft form, but at least they give an idea of what the expectation will be. So from that point, I'm suggesting that a Forest Service role is to compare the existing monitoring to indicators. I know that the monitoring committee has asked for a review of existing monitoring, and I'm suggesting that a different way to approach that is for the Forest Service to do their own evaluation and then communicate the results to the monitoring committee. But take a look at these indicators and compare what currently is underway in terms of a monitoring program, and then evaluate gaps. For the coalition, again, the coalition started with the good work of the committee identifying monitoring questions and issues, and these were organized due to Rick's efforts by PFC goal. And an appropriate step for the committee is to take those questions as they currently exist, those questions and issues, and compare them to the CFLRP indicators. And in particular, in the short term, it's the collection of ecological indicators that are policy, and these indicators are at a fairly general level, but they address both the CFLRP landscape, in the Payette's case, the 900,000 acres, as well as the individual projects like Mill Creek, Council Mountain, and Lost Creek, Boulder Creek. And then a step after that would be to recommend priorities. There is money in the annual CFLRP funds for monitoring. I believe it's $50,000 a year in round numbers for the Payette. So it's a significant amount of money, but it's not unlimited. I think the idea of recommending priorities, similar to the role the coalition had with the project design of recommending priorities, makes some sense. A lot of the issues that are important to the coalition, how would you rank them from top to bottom in terms of priority, with the idea that there are limited funds? Which ones would you do first, and if there are funds available, which ones would you list as a lower priority? So then the Forest Service can compare the gaps and also consider the priorities from the PFC, and then ask the question, is there a need to contract the services, or can the gaps be addressed by current in-house studies or potentially new studies? If the answer is yes, then a contractor will need to develop a study plan, design the field data collection methods, populate the databases, analyze the data, and then periodically report the results of their analysis. Similar for the internal studies, and some of these may already be ongoing. I'm saying implement internal studies if there is a gap. It's the combination of both the contractor reports and the internal studies that would provide the data source for summarizing effectiveness. And then it's the Forest Service's role to produce the report that goes to Congress, and then the PFC would review the report, and ultimately the results of that report could help modify or improve the project design for future projects. But this information also provides the general public with the progress and successes of forest restoration. I mentioned several different documents, so similar to implementation monitoring, I'd just like to point out where those are on the website. Going to administration and CFLRP, the 5-year reporting guidance for ecology. This is actually a letter that was sent to the regional foresters and states that this is a policy for nationally for the 23 projects. And the ecological indicator for CFLRP reporting is the detailed description of the reporting requirements for that aspect of projects. And then the ecological considerations are not the only part. There are jobs and economics, fire-related information, and leveraged funds. These are still in a draft format or a draft stage. They have not been adopted yet, but at least the drafts gives the PFC some examples and some idea of what they can expect. And I want to emphasize that this is a draft from my perspective. My intent here is that the committee ought to discuss this as well as the PFC and decide whether or not this is a reasonable approach to address effectiveness monitoring, and at least a reasonable approach in terms of the roles of the respective parties, the coalition, the Forest Service, and contractors. And hopefully this will help the monitoring committee make progress and move forward.